Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing a whole bunch of different hand drawings that I found throughout my studio and in sketchbooks that I did throughout the past couple of years as I was trying to improve my hands. And after I share all of these with you, I'm going to be painting a hand using watercolor. And as I share all of these studies with you guys, which I promise you it is related to today's topic, I'm going to be talking about art block, which is something huge and something that a lot of us artists struggle with from time to time. And to answer lots of questions that I get almost on a weekly basis through social media, I have kind of compiled my main tips and tricks that I have found help me stay consistent and inspired with my work. So first and foremost, before getting into the tips, I just want to explain that for me, art block doesn't seem to happen in the same way that I've heard other artists talk about art block. I've heard others explain art block as having your imagination or your ideas completely flatline, like wanting to do something but having absolutely no idea what to do, or no ideas come into your brain at all. For me, it's the complete opposite. For me, all the time, 24/7, my brain is completely 100% overflooding with all of these different ideas that I want to make happen. And though this might seem like an amazing problem to have for an artist or a creative person, it's really exhausting. If you have ever, for example, been in the situation in which you have to clean a very messy room, but it's so messy that you don't even know where to start, that's basically my mind. If I didn't set systems in place that allowed me to focus on my main goals and stay consistent with that. If for some reason something happens in my life, I get sick or an emergency happens and I lose track of my planning and I fall behind with the things I wanted to do, that's where I see that I start falling into this downward spiral that leads to just depression and having to do some serious work to get back on track. On the other hand, I tend to put way too much on my plate. I overwork myself, and this also leads to exhaustion. And then whenever you try to work and you're exhausted, this leads to more frustration and more mistakes, and it's just a downward spiral as well. If any of you can relate to this, to my version of art block, let me know in the comment section below, or just let me know what it's like for you. And so for the last couple of years, I have learned a lot about self-care and time management, and I have just implemented different strategies that have allowed me to keep working on my artistic progress and making steady progress towards my goals. And I have shared my findings with aspiring artists through both my blog over at ericalancaster.com and this YouTube channel as well, because I really want to help other artists that are going through this. Okay, so before getting started with the very first tip, I want to say welcome to all you new people just visiting my channel for the very first time. I'm super happy you're here. Consider subscribing because every single Friday I share new art tips, drawing and painting tutorials, and encouragement type videos for aspiring artists. And if you do subscribe, don't forget to click on the little notification bell so that YouTube can let you know whenever I publish a new video. Otherwise, you may not find out about it. Alright you guys, let's get into the 10 tips to help you avoid getting into art block in the first place. I really feel these ideas are going to help you whether you suffer from the type of art block that I suffer from, like having way too many ideas and not knowing where to start, or whether you're simply lacking motivation to create in the first place, or whether you really want to create but have absolutely no ideas at all of what to create. Tip number 1 is going to be to prioritize your mental and physical health. And I've talked about the importance of this in a past YouTube video and blog post titled Self-Care for Artists and Creatives. I'm going to leave a link to it down below in the description box in case you haven't checked it out, because this one is huge. If you are mentally and physically exhausted and you don't make time for self-care the way that you should be, and you try to work when you are in this state, you're going to be unable to concentrate and focus as much as you could. You're going to make many more mistakes, which are going to lead to more frustration. And maybe you're even going to come up with conclusions about your abilities and your artwork that are absolutely not true. And furthermore, something I have come to realize is the people who take better care of themselves tend to be more self-confident. And this definitely impacts our work as artists, because the more we think that we're going to be able to achieve something, the more likely we are to achieve it. Just the thought that maybe you're not going to achieve it the first time around, maybe not the second time around, but you're definitely going to get there is going to help you get there sooner. So if you hit an art block, take a moment to step back from your work and analyze whether you're feeling this way because you're mentally and or physically exhausted. And if you are, do yourself a favor and take a break. And do whatever it is you have to do to get yourself in the right mindset again. So make sure you're getting enough rest, make sure you're eating correctly, make sure you're moving your body. Exercising is so important for us who spend so long sitting down. And you can even try meditation or whatever it is you want to do. Tip number 2 is to ditch the perfectionism and prioritize improvement. So perfectionism and having the absolute, highest expectations out of every single thing that we do as artists is probably one of the worst things that we can do as creative beings. And the reason this is because this fills us up with anxiety and dread, and we fear the blank piece of paper or canvas. And by losing so much time standing there frozen, this kind of impedes us from creating as much work as we could be creating. And it's by creating large amounts of work that we're able to improve. So stop having such high expectations out of every single piece of artwork that you create, and stop judging yourself or thinking like you're less of an artist for making mistakes, because we all do them. I know for myself, it wasn't until I embraced the process and exploration and just improvement over perfection that I started making the most progress as an artist. Instead of spending hours upon hours on one same piece and trying to get it absolutely perfect, what I did was I acknowledged my mistakes and I moved on to the next thing and tried to improve in that sense. And then I moved on to the next thing and the next thing. And that's how I came to improve fastest. Tip number 3 is to focus on a specific skill that you want to improve, and not necessarily on a huge concept or idea behind the piece. So I made time to sit down and think about the kind of work that I do on a weekly basis. And around 60% of the work that I do are actually studies and explorations in terms of, techniques and subjects that I want to improve upon. Not every single piece of artwork that you create has to have some sort of grandiose concept behind it. And in fact, what I have found to be the case is that it is when I am doing studies and explorations that the ideas come to me for bigger projects. And this is exactly why all of these hands come into play with today's topic. I really wanted to improve hands, and so I just gave myself the assignment of filling up sketchbook pages with hands in all sorts of different poses, and that's what I did. And then, as I was creating all of these hands, all of these ideas started coming up in my head. So this is something that I highly recommend you do if you have absolutely no inspiration at all and no ideas come up in your head. Simply sit down and think about specific subjects, techniques, and even new drawing or painting mediums that you want to try out, and just work on that. And because there is always going to be something that we could improve upon, there is no reason really to be waiting around for inspiration or even looking for inspiration online, because you probably already know a few different areas that you have to improve upon. So why not work on that? Tip number 4 is to set goals and stick to them. So I talked about the importance of setting goals before in a previous video. This is absolutely imperative for me to do because, as I said, if I don't focus on one thing, on my end goal, and on those things that I have to do to get me there, I'm never gonna make any progress with all of these ideas that are constantly coming up in my head and everything that I have to do from day to day. I really believe in the importance of making time to think of what we want out of life, and once we have come to that conclusion, on constantly revisiting our goals and the action steps that we need to take in order to get there. And this really helps me steer clear of art block, because once I have decided what's important to me, what those end goals are, then I'm going to set my short-term goals and then block in my schedules on a weekly basis to make sure that I'm consistently moving towards my goals. There is no guesswork anymore. And for me, that is all of the motivation I need. Knowing that I am getting every single day closer to my goals, that is my motivation to keep going. And I share everything in regards to my own time management strategies, as well as a whole bunch of downloadable PDFs for goal setting in a past blog post that I wrote titled Time Management for Artists, which I'm going to make sure to link to down below in the description box. Now, when you are setting those goals for yourself and doing your time management, you have to be very honest and realistic about what you're going to be able to achieve depending on your personal situation. Because if you set very, very complex, huge goals for yourself and you're working a full-time job or you have kids or whatever it is, that could possibly lead to, overwhelm and even exhaustion. And it's just going to be the same thing all over again. And I realize that this might seem kind of very practical and cold coming from an artist, but the fact of the matter is that I create art for a living and I treat this as my full-time job. And when I was working at a normal quote unquote job every day, it's not like I was waiting for inspiration to hit me to get the work done. I still got up every single morning, whether I felt like it or not, whether I was tired, whether I was sick, I got up and I got ready to go to work. And for me, it's the same thing. This is my work and I cannot wait for inspiration to hit me, or I cannot wait to be in the right mindset or in the, best of moods to get the work done. Moving on to tip number 5, and this one is to just do something that is easy for you or that you're just good at. So sometimes what we need is to do something fun and just reignite our passion through art by doing something that we're good at, something that comes easily to us. In my opinion, this is a perfect way to go if you have to ease back into your work after having taken some time off. Do something that's fun for you and that won't lead to frustration. Just take it a step at a time and start building up that confidence again little by little. And maybe you can even recreate a piece that you've done before. Tip number 6 is going to be to explore a completely different medium, subject, or technique than the ones you usually use. So for me, something that really works is doing something completely abstract and having absolutely no expectations of myself. As many of you probably already know, if you have been following my YouTube channel or my work on social media, you know that I'm mostly a representational artist and I don't really do many abstracts. This is an excellent way of getting our creative juices flowing again with no expectations. And really, what I have found in many of these situations is that the things that I learned when I am doing these kinds of explorations really enhance my work that I usually do in some way, shape, or form. So a couple of examples of how this can happen is if you usually paint landscapes, then you can try drawing portraits. Or if you usually paint animals using watercolors, you can try to paint them using acrylics, or just use a completely different format altogether from what you're used to, etc. So for me, as I mentioned before, I love doing abstract pieces and focusing only on shape, color, texture, etc., as opposed to focusing on creating something completely representational. That is what I usually do. And I also, something that I shared in a very old video that I think almost nobody has seen, is that I love exploring collage. Collage is so fun, and I tend to get so many different ideas for bigger pieces when I am doing collage. Tip number 7 is going to be to limit consumption and increase creation. So I find a lot of beginner artists tend to think that inspiration is going to suddenly hit them in some kind of lightning magical moment, or they tend to look for inspiration in the form of other artists' work through constantly scrolling through Instagram, Pinterest, or whatever it may be. So it's perfectly fine to look for inspiration from time to time and to realize what your favorite art styles and even your favorite artistic movements in the past have been. However, I'm going to challenge you to try to find inspiration intrinsically inside of yourself by thinking of what has influenced you in the past. And not only in terms of visual arts, but also in terms of movies, in terms of literature, in terms of your past life experiences, your culture, the music you like, how certain experiences make you feel from day to day. All of these things are things that can really help inspire your work. Not to mention, as artists, we have a higher sensibility than other people to finding inspiration in colors and in textures and shapes. So I want to challenge you to open yourself to all of the inspiration you have around you and inside of yourself, instead of depending on consuming other people's work over and over and over again. Think of the subjects that talk to you. Think of the skills that you want to improve and create art based on these things or studies in order to improve what you want to improve to reach and create that artwork. And create work based on that instead of wasting so much time just scrolling Pinterest and social media. Tip number 8 is going to be to look for art challenges online. They can be drawing challenges, painting challenges, or just in general creative ones. There are so many available online that you could probably find one pretty fast. However, I do want to make a very important point in terms of art challenges. I have heard of artists getting very frustrated and overwhelmed because they're not able to fulfill a specific challenge. And I do not want this to happen to you. Just have in mind that art challenges, their main point or their objective is for you to make progress and to stay consistent with your art practice. That's what matters really. Moving on to tip number 9, and this one is to organize your art making space and make it inspiring. I really love keeping my art supplies visible and on hand because this is going to inspire me to use them more often as opposed to just having them stuffed away in a closet somewhere. Have inspiring artworks up on your walls or even have pieces that you have created and loved yourself to serve as a reminder of what you can do. Create a sort of mood board if you're into that kind of thing, showing different textures and colors and shapes and styles that you want to incorporate into your work. And I know that this can be difficult because as creative beings, we tend to be a little bit on the messy side, at least I am. But if you're anything like myself, I cannot work in a very, very messy room or situation. I cannot concentrate very well. And this doesn't help with my inspiration. So if this is a case for you as well, try to have some level of organization to your space and also set aside a few minutes every day at the end of the workday to make sure that you organize things and clean things up so that you're able to come in the next day and have a fresh new start and be inspired to get right to work. And the final tip in this list, tip number 10, to help you prevent or get over an art block is to remember who you are and how far you've come. Take out those old sketchbooks, those old paintings, and compare them to what it is you're doing today. And remember why it was that you decided to pursue art in the first place. Chances are that drawing or painting or whatever it is you do is something that lights you up inside in a way that no other activity does. And yes, art is hard and we might run into low moments every now and then, but you know what? Big and worthwhile things are hard and take a ton of persistence. Remember that this is a journey and you're gonna go through ups and downs. But if you're anything like me and creating art brings you such a high level of fulfillment and it's the activity that just makes you feel most like yourself when you're doing it, then it's totally worth pursuing and you have to keep going for yourself and to inspire other people around you. Alright guys, those are my 10 tips to help you prevent and overcome art block. I really hope that you got something from this. Thank you so much for watching this video and being here with me today. I really appreciate it. Follow me on social media so you can see what I'm up to on a daily basis. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I hope to see you around next Friday. Bye!